Hello guys, welcome to Percy Fiction. So in this video, we will see, what if Percy read the Naruto reincarnated in World of God and Demon? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Scroll of Worlds. The blade of Riptide sliced through the air, missing Percy's opponent by millimeters. Sweat dripped from his brow as he pivoted, barely avoiding the counterattack from Clarice's electric spear. Getting slow, Jackson, Clarice taunted, her eyes gleaming with the thrill of combat. Is dating Annabeth making you soft? Percy smirked, feeling the familiar tug in his gut as he pulled moisture from the air. Just warming up. With a flick of his wrist, he formed a wall of water between them, freezing its front surface into a temporary shield. Clarice's spear struck the ice, sending cracked spider webbing across its surface but giving Percy the moment he needed to slide beneath her guard. Riptide's celestial bronze gleamed against Clarice's throat. Match, Chiron called from the edge of the training arena. Well done, Percy. Creative use of your abilities. Percy lowered his sword and offered Clarice a hand up. Good match. She ignored his hand but nodded grudgingly. Whatever, you're still predictable. As the other campers dispersed, heading for dinner, Chiron motioned Percy over. The centaur's expression was serious, his ancient eyes carrying that look Percy had me to recognize, the one that usually preceded trouble. A package arrived for you, Chiron said, his voice low. From your father. Percy's heart quickened. Gifts from Poseidon were rare and usually came with complications. What is it? I don't know. It's sealed with his mark, and the magic won't allow anyone but you to open it. Chiron handed him a cylindrical object wrapped in sea green silk. It was accompanied by a note warning that its contents are both dangerous and potentially valuable. Percy weighed the package in his hand. Just another Tuesday at Camp Half-Blood, then. Chiron didn't smile. Be careful, Percy. The boundaries between worlds are not always as solid as we might wish. Those words should have been a warning, but curiosity pulled at Percy like the tide. He nodded to Chiron and headed toward his cabin. The package tucked under his arm. Inside cabin 3, Percy sat cross-legged on his bunk. The walls glowed with the soft blue-green light reflected from the fountain in the corner. A gift from his father years ago. He ran his fingers over the silk wrapping, feeling the slight pulse of power beneath. All right, Dad, he murmured. Let's see what you've sent me this time. The silk unwrapped at his touch, revealing an ancient scroll case made of some material that resembled coral but felt harder than stone. Intricate carvings covered its surface, symbols Percy didn't recognize mixed with Greek letters that seemed to shift and change as he watched. The seal bore Poseidon's trident mark, but there was something else intertwined with it, a spiral pattern that made Percy's eyes hurt when he focused on it too long. He broke the seal with a sharp twist. A scent of salt and something foreign, like ozone mixed with forest, filled the cabin. Inside was a scroll made of a pale, flexible material that wasn't quite paper or parchment. Here goes nothing, Percy muttered, unrolling the scroll. The characters on the page weren't Greek or English. They resembled Japanese kanji but with subtle differences that made them unreadable. As Percy stared at them, however, they began to shift and transform, rearranging themselves into words he could understand. The hidden histories of the shinobi world compiled by the Sage of Six Paths translated by Tritones, envoy of Poseidon. Percy frowned. Shinobi. Like ninja, he vaguely remembered watching anime with Grove during one of their rare moments of downtime. As his fingers traced the first line of text, the scroll began to glow. The blue light intensified, pulsing with his heartbeat. Percy tried to drop the scroll, but his hands wouldn't obey. Not good, he gasped as the light enveloped him. The cabin dissolved around him. Percy felt himself falling, tumbling through space that bent and twisted impossibly. His body seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously, a sensation worse than any shadow travel he'd experienced with Nico. He tried to scream, but no sound emerged. Images flashed before him. Moss. Sea beasts with tails that leveled mountains, people walking on water and breathing fire, warriors with eyes that swirled with power. Then darkness. Percy awoke to the sound of running water. For a moment, he thought he was back in his cabin, but the quality of light against his closed eyelids was wrong, brighter, less filtered. He opened his eyes to a canopy of leaves. He lay beside a small tree in a forest unlike any at Camp Half-Blood. The trees were massive, towering hundreds of feet into the air, their trunks wider than cabins. "Okay," Percy said, sitting up and wincing at the pounding in his head. Definitely not in New York anymore. He checked his pockets. Riptide was still there, thankfully. The scroll was nowhere to be seen. His Camp Half-Blood t-shirt and jeans had somehow been replaced with strange clothing. Dark blue pants that ended mid-calf, a mesh shirt under a sleeveless black top, and sandals. What in Hades? He touched the fabric, which felt sturdy but light. The sound of footsteps made him freeze. Percy uncapped Riptide, the pen expanding into a 3-foot-long celestial bronze sword in an instant. A figure dropped from the trees, a boy about his age with picky brown hair and a metal headband bearing a stylized leaf symbol. He wore similar clothes to Percy's new outfit and carried a knife in each hand. "Who are you?" the boy demanded in what should have been Japanese, but Percy somehow understood perfectly. "How did you get past the village's barrier?" Percy raised Riptide. "I could ask you the same thing. Where am I?" The boy's eyes narrowed, focusing on Percy's sword. "That's no standard chakra blade." He shifted his stance. "Are you from Kiri? A spy?" "I don't know what Kiri is," Percy said honestly. "My name's Percy Jackson. I'm from New York. Well, originally, I was at Camp Half-Blood when—" "Enough lies," the boy snapped. His hands formed rapid signs. "Water style. Water bullet." The stream beside Percy erupted, a sphere of water shooting toward him at incredible speed. Percy's demigod reflexes kicked in. He dropped and rolled, but instead of dodging, he instinctively reached out with his powers. The water bullet stopped mid-air, trembling as two forces fought for control. Percy pushed back, redirecting the sphere toward the boy, who leapt away with inhuman agility. "You're a water user." The boy landed on a tree trunk, adhering to its vertical surface in defiance of gravity. "But you're not wearing any village insignia." Percy stood, keeping Riptide ready. "Look, I don't want to fight. I just need to figure out where I am and how to get home." The boy hesitated, then dropped to the ground. He kept his knives ready but lowered them slightly. You appeared in a flash of light. The barrier sensors detected a massive chakra spike. His eyes were calculating. "If you wanted to attack the village, you would have done it already." "Smart kid," Percy said. "I'm not here to attack anyone. The scroll brought me here, wherever, here, is." Scroll. That caught the boy's interest. "What scroll?" Before Percy could answer, 5 more figures surrounded them, wearing animal masks and gray armor. They moved with silent precision, and that made even the most experienced Camp Half-Blood campers look like amateurs. "Stand down, Hiroshi," one wearing a cat mask ordered. "We'll take it from here." The boy, Hiroshi, immediately sheathed his knives and stepped back. He claims to have been transported by a scroll. He can manipulate water without hand signs. Cat Mask turned to Percy. "Surrender your weapon. You will be taken to the village for questioning." Percy weighed his options. He could fight. The proximity to water gave him an advantage, but he had no idea where he was or how to get home. These people might have answers. "Fine," he said, recapping Riptide and showing them the pen. "But this stays with me. Family heirloom." The masked figures exchanged glances. One with a bird mask stepped forward, hands forming signs. "He's carrying a transformed weapon. I can sense the chakra in it." "It's not chakra," Percy said, though he wasn't sure what chakra was. "It's magic. Greek magic." "Bind him," Cat Mask ordered. "Hokage, Sama will want to see this one personally." 2 of the masked figures moved with blinding speed. Percy tried to dodge, but they were faster than anything he'd faced before. Within seconds, his wrists were bound with wire that seemed to suppress his connection to water. "These won't hold me long," Percy warned, testing the bindings. Bird Mask leaned in close. "They're chakra suppression wires. If you try to channel energy through them, they'll sever your hands." "Lovely," Percy muttered. Hiroshi approached Cat Mask. "Taiko, let me accompany you." "I made first contact." After a moment's consideration, Cat Mask nodded. "Stay back and observe only, Genin." They moved through the forest at incredible speed, leaping from branch to branch. Percy found himself carried between two of the masked figures, his feet barely touching the trees. The sensation was disorienting but exhilarating. After several minutes, the trees thinned, revealing a sight that made Percy's breath catch. A massive village sprawled before them, surrounded by a high wall. Buildings in various architectural styles clustered together, dominated by a mountain with 5 faces carved into it, reminiscent of Mount Rushmore. "Welcome to Konohagakure," Hiroshi said, noticing Percy's expression. The village hidden in the leaves. The Hokage's office was circular, with windows offering a panoramic view of the village. Percy stood before a desk where a woman with blonde hair and a small diamond mark on her forehead sat reviewing reports. Despite her youthful appearance, something in her eyes reminded Percy of Chiron, the weight of years and responsibility. "So," she said, setting aside a scroll, "you appeared in our forest in a flash of light, carrying a weapon that transforms, and you can manipulate water without hand signs." Her amber eyes scrutinized him. "Start talking." Percy had been in enough situations like this to know honesty was usually the best policy, with certain strategic omissions. "My name is Percy Jackson. I'm not from your world. I was reading an ancient scroll that mentioned something called the Shinobi World when it activated and brought me here." "Another world?" The Hokage's eyebrow raised. "That's quite a claim. Where I come from, there are no villages like yours. We don't have people walking up trees or shooting water bullets. Our powers come from different sources." "And what is your source?" she asked. Percy hesitated. "Where I'm from, the Greek gods are real. I'm a son of Poseidon, god of the sea. That's why I can control water." The room went silent. The masked guards shifted slightly. Then the Hokage laughed. "I've heard many infiltration stories in my time, but this is certainly creative." "It's the truth," Percy insisted. "Look, I can prove it." He glanced at a plant on her desk with a water pitcher beside it. "May I?" She studied him, then nodded slightly. One of the guards loosened his bindings but kept a kunai pressed against his back. Percy reached out, feeling the familiar tug in his gut. The water rose from the pitcher, forming shapes in the air, a trident, a pegasus, a miniature whirlpool. "No hand signs," the Hokage murmured. "No visible chakra molding." "That's because it's not chakra," Percy said, returning the water to the pitcher. "It's my birthright as a son of Poseidon." The Hokage stood and approached him. She was shorter than he expected but radiated authority. "I am Tsunade, 5th Hokage of Konoha. If what you say is true, you've stumbled into a dangerous situation, Percy Jackson." "Story of my life," Percy muttered. "Our world is in a precarious balance. The 5 great nations maintain an uneasy peace. Unknown entities with unusual abilities appearing out of nowhere." She shook her head. "It raises concerns." "I just want to find my way home," Percy said. "The scroll that brought you here, where is it?" Percy frowned. "I don't know. It disappeared when I arrived." Tsunade turned to one of the masked figures. "Hawk, assemble a search team for the area where he appeared. Cat, bring Shizune and Kakashi here immediately." She returned to Percy. "Until we understand what's happening, you'll remain in Konoha under supervision." "Am I a prisoner?" Percy asked. "Let's call you a guest with limited privileges," Tsunade replied with a thin smile. "Hiroshi." The boy who had found Percy stepped forward from where he'd been observing silently. "Hokage-sama, you made first contact. You'll be responsible for our guest while we investigate. Show him around, keep him out of trouble, report anything unusual." Hiroshi bowed. "Understood." Tsunade fixed Percy with a stern look. "Any attempts to escape or cause trouble will be met with immediate action." "Clear." Percy nodded. "Crystal. But you should know, where there's water, I'm never completely contained." For a moment, Tsunade's composure slipped, and Percy glimpsed something like grudging respect. "Noted. Hiroshi, take him to the guest quarters in the East District. Anbu will be watching." As they left the office, Percy noticed Hiroshi's thoughtful expression. "You believe me, don't you?" The boy shrugged. "I've seen stranger things, and no spy would create such an unbelievable cover story." He eyed Percy curiously. "So, son of a god. What's that like?" "Complicated," Percy said. "What's a genin?" "Junior ninja rank. I'm still training." Hiroshi led him down a spiral staircase. "If you're really from another world, you know nothing about chakra or shinobi, do you?" Not a thing, Percy admitted. Though I'm getting crash course impressions. Hiroshi grinned. Then you'd better pay attention. It might keep you alive. The guest quarters turned out to be a small but comfortable apartment with basic furnishings, a bathroom, and a kitchenette. Hey, RCY immediately tested the water in the sink, relieved to find his powers worked normally. Hiroshi sat cross-legged on a cushion, watching as Percy explored the space. So, in your world, you're the S.On of a sea god who gives you power over water. That's the simplified version, Percy said, joining him on a cushion. There are other demigods, children of different gods with different abilities. Like bloodline limits, Hiroshi mused. Some clans in our world inherit special abilities. The Uchiha can use their Sharingan eyes to copy techniques and cast powerful illusions. The Hyuga can see through objects in the chakra network. Percy tried to absorb this information. And everyone here can do, what was it? Jutsu. Not everyone. Civilians have chakra but don't train to use it. Shinobi. Learn to mold chakra through hand signs to create techniques, ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu. And you shoot water and walk up trees. Hiroshi grinned. That's academy-level stuff. Wait until you see what Jonin can do. His expression turned curious. Can I see your sword again? The one that was a pen. Percy hesitated, then pulled out Riptide. It only works for me. And it can't hurt mortals, regular humans. What about Shinobi? That, Percy said, is a good question. He uncapped the pen, and Riptide expanded to its full length. The celestial bronze gleamed in the apartment's light. Hiroshi's eyes widened. Amazing. Is that a storage jutsu? It's enchanted. The sword always returns to my pocket if I lose it. Percy recapped it, and it shrank back into a pen. Has saved my life more times than I can count. Against monsters in your world. Monsters, titans, giants. The usual. Hiroshi leaned forward. We have our own monsters here. Tailed beasts with devastating power. Rogue ninja who've mastered forbidden techniques. He lowered his voice. And recently, there have been rumors of something worse. Percy raised an eyebrow. Worse how? Strange occurrences. People disappearing near ancient temples. Unusual energy signatures that our sensors can't identify. Hiroshi looked troubled. Some say the boundaries between worlds are weakening. The phrase echoed Chiron's warning. When did this start? A few months ago. The Council of Elders has been secretive, but my sensei says there's something big happening. Hiroshi stood abruptly. Come on. If you're going to be stuck here, you should at least see the village. Percy followed him outside, where the late afternoon sun cast long shadows between buildings. The architecture was a blend of traditional and practical, with electrical lines running between structures that looked centuries old. People moved through the streets, some in ninja attire, others in civilian clothes. This is surreal, Percy muttered. It's like walking through an anime. A what? Never mind. Hiroshi led him through winding streets, pointing out landmarks. That's Ichiraku Ramen, best in the village. The academy is over there, where young shinobi train. The hospital, where Tsunade-sama revolutionized medical ninjutsu. Percy absorbed it all, trying to make sense of this world. They passed a training ground where young ninjas practiced throwing shuriken at targets. So everyone here starts training as a kid. Hiroshi nodded. I entered the academy at 7. Graduated at 12. Most do. Child soldiers, Percy murmured. Hiroshi frowned. We're shinobi. It's our way of life, our duty to the village. They reached a bridge spanning a wide river. Percy felt the familiar pull of the water, comforting amid all the strangeness. What's your specialty? Percy asked. You used water techniques. Water style is my primary affinity, Hiroshi confirmed. I'm from the Mizushima clan. We have a natural connection to water chakra, though nothing like what you demonstrated. Percy stepped to the bridge's edge, looking down at the flowing river. Mind if I try something? Hiroshi glanced around. There are probably Anbu watching, but go ahead. Percy reached out with his senses, feeling the current below. Instead of just manipulating the water as he usually would, he tried to feel for this chakra everyone kept mentioning. Deep within, he sensed something new, a different kind of energy swirling alongside his demigod powers. When he tugged at it, both energies responded in harmony. The water below rose in a spiraling column, high. and more controlled than Percy had ever managed before. It felt different, stronger, more precise. Incredible, Hiroshi breathed. You're channeling chakra and your god power together. Percy let the water fall back with a splash. It feels complementary, like they're meant to work together. Maybe they are. Hiroshi's expression turned thoughtful. The scroll that brought you here, it must have had a purpose. Yeah, well, mysterious purposes are getting old. Percy stretched, surprised by how his body felt lighter, more responsive in this world. So what now? I just wait around until someone figures out how to send me home. Hiroshi shook his head. If there's one thing I've learned as a shinobi, it's that sitting around waiting rarely solves problems. He lowered his voice. There's a temple in the forest outside the village. It predates Konoha, ancient stone covered in symbols no one's been able to translate. Until 2 weeks ago, when characters started appearing that some scholars could read. Let me guess, Percy said. Something about worlds colliding. Close. When the son of the sea walks between worlds, the veil will tear, and old gods will wake. Percy groaned. Of course. Because prophecies always have to be dramatic and vague. Hiroshi looked surprised. You have prophecies in your world too. Unfortunately. And they're just as annoying. Percy glanced at the setting sun. This temple, can we see it? It's restricted. Only Jonin and Anbu are allowed near it now. Percy smiled, the familiar pre-quest adrenaline starting to flow. Restricted areas are kind of my specialty. Before Hiroshi could respond, a figure appeared beside them in a swirl of leaves. A tall man with silver hair that defied gravity, his face covered except for one eye, stood reading a small orange book. Interesting conversation, he said without looking up from his book. Planning to break village rules already, Percy Jackson. Hiroshi straightened immediately. Kakashi-sensei. We were just discussing architectural history, I'm sure. Kakashi's visible eye crinkled in what might have been a smile. Tsunade-sama wants to see our visitor again. Seems we've found something. Back in the Hokage's office, Percy found Tsunade examining a tattered piece of parchment. A dark-haired woman stood beside her, concern evident in her expression. This was found near where you appeared, Tsunade said without preamble. Can you read it? Percy approached the desk. The parchment contained symbols similar to those on the scroll that had transported him, but these were mixed with Greek letters. Parts of it, he admitted. This section is ancient Greek. It says something about convergence of realms and the sea's air bridging worlds. Tsunade exchanged glances with Kakashi. As we suspected, Shizune, show him the artifact. The dark-haired woman brought forward a small box. Inside was a circular medallion made of a blue-green metal Percy had never seen before. INS cribbed on its surface was a trident intertwined with the spiral symbol he'd seen on the scroll. This was embedded in a tree at the site, Shizune explained. It's emitting a chakra signature unlike anything in our records. Percy reached for it instinctively. Tsunade started to object, but Kakashi raised a hand. Let's see what happens, he said quietly. As Percy's fingers touched the medallion, it glowed with sea-green light. Images flashed in his mind. A temple deep in a forest, a stone altar, a tear in reality showing Camp Half-Blood on the other side. He gasped and pulled back. I know where I need to go. The Uzushio Temple, Tsunade said, watching him carefully. Percy nodded. There's a connection there, a thin spot between worlds. I saw it. That temple has been abandoned for generations, Tsunade said. It was a sacred site for the Uzumaki clan, masters of sealing techniques and barriers between dimensions. Which explains why it's the focal point, Kakashi mused. If Somio, Nei were trying to create a passage between worlds. I need to go there, Percy insisted. Tsunade frowned. The temple has become unstable. Strange phenomena have been reported. We've had to establish a perimeter. With all due respect, Hokage-sama, Percy said, I'm probably the only one who can fix this. In my world, I've dealt with things like this before. Tsunade studied him for a long moment. Kakashi, assemble a team. You'll escort Percy Jackson to the temple at dawn. She fixed Percy with a stern look. This is not permission to act recklessly. You will observe only, under Kakashi's supervision. Of course, Percy agreed, though he had no intention of being a passive observer if things went wrong. Kakashi nodded. I'll take Hiroshi's team. His water affinity may prove useful if Percy's abilities are related. Approved. Dismissed. As they turned to leave, Tsunade added, Percy Jackson, a word of warning. Our world is balanced on a knife's edge. Whatever brought you here, whatever you intend to do, consider the consequences carefully. I always do, Percy replied. Whether I listen to those considerations is another matter. For the first time, Tsunade smiled genuinely. You remind me of a certain knuckle-headed ninja. Heaven help us all. Back in the guest quarters, Percy found himself unable to sleep. The medallion, which Tsunade had reluctantly allowed him to keep, pulsed faintly in his hand. Its energy resonating with his own. A soft tap at the window drew his attention. Hiroshi crouched on the sill, motioning for him to open it. Aren't there Anbu watching? Percy asked as he let the young ninja in. They rotate shifts at midnight. There's a 3-minute gap in surveillance. Hiroshi looked both excited and nervous. I've been thinking about what you said, about the temple. And, we shouldn't wait until dawn. Hiroshi lowered his voice. Something's happening there tonight. My cousin is on perimeter duty, and she sent me a coded message. The barrier around the temple is fluctuating, and there's been increased activity. Percy weighed his options. Waiting for official permission was safer, but delays had cost him dearly in past quests. What about Kakashi? Won't he sense us leaving? Hiroshi grinned and pulled out a small tag covered in intricate symbols. Concealment seal. It masks chakra signatures for 30 minutes. Enough time to get beyond the village barriers. You've thought this through, Percy said, impressed. I'm a genin. We're supposed to show initiative. Hiroshi's expression turned serious. But if we're caught, it's my career and your goodwill with Tsunade-sama. Percy glanced at the medallion in his palm. It pulsed more intensely, as if responding to their conversation. Lead the way, he decided. They slipped out through the window, using the concealment seal to mask their presence. Hiroshi led Percy across rooftops, moving with the silent efficiency of a trained shinobi. Percy found himself keeping pace more easily than expected, his body responding with enhanced agility. Your chakra network is adapting, Hiroshi whispered as they paused at the village wall. It's integrating with your existing powers. Is that good or bad? Unprecedented, Hiroshi replied. Like everything about you. They scaled the wall between patrol rotations and plunged into the forest beyond. The night was alive with sounds, insects, nocturnal animals. The rustle of leaves in the breeze. As they ran, Percy felt increasingly certain they were making the right choice. The medallion grew warmer in his pocket, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. After 20 minutes of fast travel, Hiroshi signaled a halt. Ahead, barely visible through the trees, was a ring of paper tags surrounding a clearing. Barrier seals, Hiroshi explained. Standard Anbu perimeter. Can we get past them? Not without triggering an alarm. Hiroshi studied the tags. Unless, he pulled out a small brush and ink from his pouch and carefully drew a symbol on his palm. Then he formed a series of hand signs, whispering words Percy couldn't catch. Water style. Mist passage, Hiroshi murmured. A fine mist rose from the ground, enveloping them. Hiroshi took Percy's wrist. Our bodies will temporarily take on water properties. We can pass between the barrier seals without disrupting them, but it only lasts 20 seconds. Stay close. His sensation was bizarre. Percy felt his physical form becoming less solid, similar to his experiences underwater but more extreme. They moved through the mist, passing between two barrier tags without disturbing them. Once inside the perimeter, they solidified again. Percy shuddered slightly. That was different. It's a Mizushima clan technique, Hiroshi said with pride. Few outside our family can master it. Beyond the barrier, the forest changed. The trees grew more ancient, their trunks twisted into unnatural shapes. Moss glowed with faint blue luminescence, providing just enough light to navigate by. The temple should be just ahead, Hiroshi whispered. Stay alert. If there's Anbu here, a sound cut through the night, a high-pitched whine like metal scraping against glass. The medallion in Percy's pocket flared hot. They emerged into a clearing dominated by a stone structure that resembled a Greek temple crossed with a Japanese shrine. Its columns were carved with spiraling patterns that seemed to move in the dim light. At its center stood an altar made of black stone. But what drew Percy's attention was the figure standing before the altar. A man in flowing white robes performed a series of complex hand signs, each movement leaving trails of glowing energy in the air. Above the altar, space itself seemed to distort, creating a shimmering window through which Percy glimpsed familiar images. Long Island Sound, the big house at Camp Half-Blood. "That's my world," Percy breathed. The man turned, sensing their presence. His eyes widened in recognition, not of Percy, but of what Percy represented. "The catalyst arrives," he said, his voice resonating unnaturally. "Right on schedule." Hiroshi shifted into a fighting stance. "Takeshi, you're a missing nin. There's a kill order on you." "Hiroshi Mizushima," Takeshi replied with a slight bow. "How kind of you to bring the son of Poseidon to me. It saves me the trouble of infiltrating Konoha." Percy uncapped Riptide. "You know who I am. I've been expecting you for months." Takeshi gestured to the distortion above the altar. "The boundaries between worlds thin every 1,000 years. With the right catalyst, a being of divine blood, they can be torn open completely." "To what end?" Percy demanded, though he had a sinking feeling he knew the answer. Takeshi's smile was cold. "The gods of your world possess power beyond anything in ours. Power I intend to claim. You're trying to cross into my world and challenge the Olympians." Percy couldn't help but laugh. "Trust me, that's a bad idea. Even for someone with whatever you have. You misunderstand." Takeshi's hands began forming new signs. "I don't want to challenge your gods. I want to become one." The distortion above the altar pulsed, expanding outward. Through it, Percy could see Camp Half-Blood more clearly, campers moving about, unaware of the danger. "Hiroshi," Percy said quietly, "get word to Kakashi. I'll hold him off. I'm not leaving you, that's an order." Percy said with enough authority that Hiroshi hesitated. "If that portal fully opens, both our worlds are in danger." Hiroshi looked torn but nodded. "Don't die, son of Poseidon." He disappeared into the forest with shinobi speed. Percy turned back to Takeshi, who watched with amusement. "Brave but futile. The ritual is already past the critical point. All it needs now is a catalyst, your blood. Freely given or forcibly taken. Not big on options, are you?" Percy twirled Riptide. "How about a third choice? You stop this ritual and walk away before I have to hurt you." Takeshi laughed. "You have courage, Godeling. But you face a priest of the hidden temple, master of 5 chakra natures and forbidden techniques that would make your Hokage tremble." His hands blurred through signs, and the ground beneath Percy erupted in stone spikes. Percy leapt aside, rolling to his feet with demigod reflexes. "Not bad," Takeshi acknowledged. "But how will you fare against this? Fire style. Phoenix flower jutsu." Multiple fireballs shot toward Percy, who instinctively pulled water from the air to create a shield. The flames hissed against it, creating a cloud of steam. Using the cover, Percy charged through the mist, Riptide aimed at Takeshi's chest. The missing nin barely dodged, the celestial bronze blade slicing his robe. "Interesting weapon," Takeshi noted, touching the cut. "It disrupts chakra flow. Painful. It gets worse," Percy promised. Takeshi's expression hardened. "Enough games. Lightning style. Thunderclap arrow." A bolt of electricity shot from his fingertips. Percy tried to dodge, but the lightning followed him, striking his shoulder and sending him crashing into a column. Pain lanced through his body, muscles spasming. "Your divine blood makes you resilient," Takeshi noted. Approaching the altar again, but not invulnerable, Percy struggled to his feet, his left arm numb from the lightning. He focused on the water in the air, drawing it toward him. Feeling the dual energy of his demigod powers and this world's chakra flowing together. The medallion in his pocket pulsed, its energy synchronizing with his. Percy pulled it out, and it glowed brilliantly in his hand. Takeshi's eyes widened. "The convergence key. Where did you get that?" Instead of answering, Percy channeled energy through the medallion. Water spiraled around him, forming a trident of pure liquid that glowed with sea-green light. "This ends now," Percy said, feeling power surge through him unlike anything he'd experienced before. He thrust the water trident forward. It shot toward Takeshi with incredible speed, morphing into a dragon-shaped torrent that roared with the force of a hurricane. Takeshi's hands blurred through signs. Earth style. Mud wall. A barrier of earth rose to block the attack, but Percy's water dragon smashed through it, engulfing Takeshi and slamming him against the altar. The missing nin gasped as the water constricted around him. "Impossible," he choked. "Your control, it's beyond any water user I've seen." Percy approached, maintaining his hold on the water. "Last chance. Stop the ritual." Takeshi's lips curved into a bloody smile. Too late. The distortion above the altar pulsed violently. The image of Camp Half-Blood wavered as something else began to emerge, a darkness that made Percy's skin crawl with recognition. "What have you done?" Percy demanded. "Created a bridge," Takeshi gasped through the water's pressure. "Not just between worlds, but between pantheons. The gods of your world, and the tailed beasts of mine." The darkness took shape. A massive eye with a swirling pattern like the Sharingan Hiroshi had described, but ancient and malevolent. "The 10 tails," Takeshi whispered reverently. "Sealed away for millennia. With your divine blood as catalyst, I can control it, become its Jinchuriki and ascend to godhood." Percy realized with horror what was happening. The boundary between worlds wasn't just thin. It was creating a passage for something from the depths of this world's mythology to enter his own. The medallion burned in his hand. Acting on instinct, Percy released Takeshi and lunged for the altar, slamming the medallion into its center where a circular depression perfectly matched its dimensions. "No!" Takeshi screamed, lunging after him. Light exploded from the medallion. The distortion wavered, its edges beginning to close. The massive eye receded, its malevolence fading. Takeshi's hands formed signs with desperate speed. Blood contract. Soul tether. He slammed his palm against Percy's back. Pain erupted along Percy's spine as something foreign invaded his body, tendrils of chakra burning like acid through his veins. "If I cannot cross over," Takeshi growled, "then neither can you." Percy fought through the pain, keeping his hand pressed against the medallion. The portal continued to shrink, the connection to Camp Half-Blood fading. With his free hand, Percy swung Riptide backward. The celestial bronze blade sliced through Takeshi's shoulder, disrupting his jutsu. The missing nin stumbled back, clutching the wound. "You've ruined everything," Takeshi snarled. "Years of preparation. Get used to disappointment," Percy grunted, still fighting the foreign chakra in his system. The portal collapsed with a thunderous implosion, sending a shockwave across the clearing had knocked both Percy and Takeshi off their feet. Silence fell. The medallion stopped glowing, now fused to the altar stone. Percy struggled to stand, his body still burning from Takeshi's technique. The missing nin lay several yards away, blood pooling beneath him from the shoulder wound. "It's not over," Takeshi coughed. "The convergence happens over days, not moments. This was just the first attempt." Percy approached him, Riptide ready. "Then I'll stop the next one too." Takeshi smiled through bloodied teeth. "With my chakra tethered to your soul?" "I think not. You feel it, don't you? The connection between us." Percy did feel it, a disturbing presence inside him, like a splinter he couldn't remove. "What did you do to me?" "Insurance," Takeshi whispered. "As long as the tether exists, the portal can be reopened. And you, son of Poseidon, cannot return home without bringing me with you." Before Percy could respond, figures surrounded them, Anbu in their animal masks, with Kakashi and Hiroshi among them. "Takeshi Morinaga," Kakashi said, his usual casual demeanor replaced by cold authority. "By order of the Hokage, you are under arrest for forbidden jutsu use, attempted dimensional breach, and treason against the allied shinobi forces." Two Anbu seized Takeshi, who didn't resist. His eyes remained locked on Percy. "We're bound now, Godeling. My fate is yours." As they dragged him away, Percy turned to Kakashi. "He did something to me, a blood contract jutsu." Kakashi's visible eye narrowed. "Soul tether, a forbidden technique from the Uzumaki scrolls." He studied Percy with concern. "It creates an unbreakable bond between two chakra networks. Can it be removed?" Percy asked, already dreading the answer. "Not easily," Kakashi admitted. "And not without risk to both parties." Hiroshi approached, looking both relieved and concerned. "You stopped the ritual." Percy nodded toward the altar, where the medallion remained embedded in stone. "Temporarily. According to Takeshi, this convergence lasts for days. Then we have time to prepare," Kakashi said. "The Hokage will want a full report." Percy stared at the altar, the implications sinking in. He was trapped in this world, bound to a dangerous fanatic. With a dimensional crisis still unfolding. Just another quest. Dawn broke over Konoha as Percy sat in the hospital, enduring another examination by medical ninja. They hovered their glowing hands over his body, expressions growing increasingly concerned. The tether is deep, a silver-haired medic explained to Tsunade, who observed from the doorway. It's integrated with his unique chakra network and divine energy. Attempting to sever it could kill him, or worse. Define worse, Percy muttered. Chakra network collapse. Essentially, you'd lose all ability to mold energy, both our chakra and your divine power. Percy winced. So I'm stuck with Takeshi's chakra inside me. For now, Tsunade said, approaching. We've placed him in a specialized containment cell with chakra suppression seals, but the tether remains active. What was he trying to do? Something about tailed beasts and becoming a Jinchuriki. Tsunade exchanged glances with Kakashi, who stood by the window. The tailed beasts are ancient entities of immense chakra. In our history, they were sealed inside human hosts, Jinchuriki, who could harness their power. Like the most extreme case of possession ever. Percy summarized. Something like that, Kakashi agreed. The 10 Tails is the original source of all tailed beasts, a primordial entity sealed away by the Sage of Six Paths, the founder of modern ninjutsu. And Takeshi wanted to become its host, Percy concluded. Using my divine blood as a catalyst. Your presence created a unique opportunity, Tsunade said. Ing with divine energy from another world, it amplified the thinning between dimensions. Hiroshi, who had been waiting outside, entered with a scroll in hand. Hokage-sama, the analysis of the temple altar is complete. Tsunade reviewed the scroll, her expression darkening. The convergence will reach its peak in 3 days, during the lunar eclipse. If the portal fully opens at that time, the barriers between all dimensions could collapse, Kakashi finished. Not just between our world and Percy's, but between every plane of existence. Great, Percy sighed. Multiversal apocalypse. Just what I needed this week. Tsunade rolled up the scroll. We have 3 days to find a solution. Percy, despite your unauthorized expedition last night, you provided valuable information. I'm placing YOU under Kakashi's supervision as a temporary ally of Konoha. Does that mean I get one of those cool headbands? Tsunade's lips twitched in what might have been amusement. No, but you do get access to our archives and training facilities. If you're going to help prevent catastrophe, you'll need to understand how to control the chakra that's developing in your system. And what about this? Percy gestured to his chest, where the tether to Takeshi pulsed occasionally. We'll need to interrogate Takeshi further, Tsunade decided. Perhaps there's a way to use the tether to our advantage. After being discharged from the hospital, Percy found himself in a training ground with Hiroshi and Kakashi. The circular field was surrounded by trees, with a small stream running through it, perfect for water techniques. The first step, Kakashi explained, is to understand the difference between your demigod abilities and chakra. One is innate, the other is molded. Percy concentrated on the stream, lifting a sphere of water into the air. This is natural for me. I just think it, and it happens. Now try to feel the chakra flow within you, Hiroshi suggested. It's like a current of energy that flows through specific pathways. Percy closed his eyes, focusing inward. Beside his familiar connection to water, he sensed new channels of energy, like a secondary circulatory system overlaid on his normal one. I feel it, he said. It's different, more structured than my usual powers. Chakra requires precision, Kakashi said. Hand signs help focus and shape it, but with your natural affinity for water, you might be able to blend both energy sources. Under their guidance, Percy spent hours practicing. He learned to form basic hand signs and channel chakra consciously. When combined with his demigod abilities, the results were impressive. Water techniques with greater precision and power than either system could achieve alone. You're a natural, Hiroshi said as Percy created a perfect water clone, a duplicate of himself made entirely of liquid. Having existing water powers helps, Percy admitted. Though the hand signs feel awkward, Kakashi observed thoughtfully, your connection to water is instinctive. Try performing the water dragon jutsu without signs, using just your intent and chakra molding. Percy focused on the stream, visualizing a dragon form while channeling chakra. The water rose, twisting into a serpentine shape that grew more defined with each second, until a fully formed water dragon hovered before them, its eyes glowing with chakra. Impressive, Kakashi murmured. You're adapting faster than expected. The dragon dissolved as Percy's concentration broke. He wiped sweat from his brow, surprised by the exertion. It's draining in a different way than my usual powers. Chakra consumption requires stamina, Hiroshi explained. Even with your divine energy supporting it, there are limits. Speaking of limits, Kakashi said, his tone shifting to seriousness. We need to discuss the tether. Percy touched his chest, where he occasionally felt Takeshi's presence like a cold spot. What about it? I've been researching the technique. The soul tether doesn't just connect your chakra networks, it creates a metaphysical bond. Under certain circumstances, it could allow consciousness transfer. Percy stared at him. You're saying Takeshi could possess me? Not exactly, but with enough concentration, he might be able to influence you or perceive through your senses. That's disturbing. Kakashi nodded, which is why you need to learn to suppress the connection. Basic meditation techniques should help temporarily. As the day progressed, Percy's training expanded to include defensive techniques and chakra suppression. By sunset, he could maintain a basic barrier against the tether's influence, though it required constant attention. They returned to the village as stars appeared overhead. Percy was exhausted but satisfied with his progress. You did well today, Kakashi said as they walked. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we begin Phase 2, preparing to counter Takeshi's techniques. Percy nodded, too tired for his usual quips. As they parted ways, Hiroshi lingered behind. Percy, he said hesitantly, there's something I didn't mention earlier. About the temple and the convergence. What is it? The archives mentioned that during the last convergence, 1,000 years ago, a visitor from another world came through. He taught the Uzumaki clan their sealing techniques before returning home. Percy raised an eyebrow, and his name, translated into our language, meant Daedalus. The name hit Percy like a physical blow. Daedalus, the inventor from Greek mythology. Hiroshi nodded. The records say he possessed knowledge beyond mortal understanding, and hands that could create wonders. Percy's mind raced. If Daedalus had visited this world during his centuries of extended life, it created a precedent, and possibly a solution to his current predicament. We need to find those records, Percy decided. If Daedalus found a way back without causing multiversal collapse, so can I. Hiroshi smiled. I hoped you'd say that. I've already requested access to the restricted archives for tomorrow. Percy clapped him on the shoulder. You're going to make a great ninja, you know that. As Percy returned to his quarters, the village settling into night around him, he felt the tether pulse inside him. Somewhere in a cell beneath the Hokage Tower, Takeshi was waiting, planning. The convergence approached, and with it, a confrontation that would determine the fate of two worlds. Percy touched the spot where Riptide rested in his pocket. 3 days to master chakra, find Daedalus's solution, and save the multiverse. Just another Wednesday. Chapter 1 end. Chapter 2. Gods and tailed beasts' morning light filtered through the window of Percy's guest quarters, drawing him from fitful dreams of churning seas and swirling red eyes. He'd felt Takeshi's presence throughout the night, a cold whisper at the edge of his consciousness, testing the boundaries of their connection. Percy sat up, running through the chakra suppression exercises Kakashi had taught him. The tether's presence receded to a dull awareness, like a splinter beneath the skin, irritating but manageable. A knock at his door interrupted his meditation. Hiroshi stood outside, accompanied by a young woman Percy hadn't met before. Her auburn hair was tied in a practical bun, and she wore the standard Konoha shinobi attire with additional pouches strapped to her thighs. Sharp green eyes assessed him with undisguised curiosity. Morning, Percy greeted them, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Please tell me you brought coffee. The woman raised an eyebrow. Coffee? At a time like this? The barriers between dimensions are collapsing, and you want caffeine. Especially at a time like this, Percy replied without missing a beat. Apocalypses are exhausting. To his surprise, she laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her serious expression. Mizuki Uzumaki, she introduced herself with a slight bow. Sealing specialist. The Hokage assigned me to your case. Percy Jackson, he replied. Dimensional anomaly, apparently. So I've heard. She studied him with professional interest. I've spent the night reviewing the soul tether technique. It's an ancient Uzumaki forbidden jutsu. I'm surprised Takeshi managed to perform it without killing himself. Percy touched his chest where the tether connected. Lucky me. The archives are waiting, Hiroshi reminded them. Tsunade-sama granted us 4 hours of access before the council meeting. They made their way through the waking village. Civilians were setting up ket stalls while shinobi moved across rooftops on morning patrols. It felt strangely normal despite the interdimensional crisis brewing. So, Percy said as they walked, Uzumaki. Like the temple. Mizuki nodded. My clan originally came from Uzushiogakure, the village hidden in the whirlpools. We were renowned for our sealing techniques and longevity before our village was destroyed. I'm sorry, Percy said, recognizing the familiar weight of lost heritage in her voice. It was before my time, she replied with practiced neutrality. But our knowledge survives. That's why I was assigned to you. If anyone can understand the convergence seals or the tether binding you to Takeshi, it's an Uzumaki. The archives were housed in a circular building adjacent to the Hokage Tower. Unlike the modern structures surrounding it, this one was clearly ancient, with stone walls and protective seals visible along its foundation. Inside, a wizened curator led them to a restricted section separated from the main archives by a shimmering barrier. He performed a series of hand signs, and the barrier parted. 4 hours, he reminded them. Touch nothing without gloves. Some scrolls are trapped. The restricted archive was dimly lit by bioluminescent fungi growing along the ceiling. Rows of scrolls and tablets stretched into shadowy recesses, some visibly radiating chakra. Where do we start? Percy asked, overwhelmed by the volume of information. Mizuki moved with purpose to a section marked with spiral symbols. The Uzumaki clan records. If Daedalus interacted with my ancestors, it would be documented here. They donned provided gloves and began carefully examining scrolls. Most were written in a script Percy couldn't read, but Mizuki translated efficiently, scanning contents and setting aside promising documents. After an hour of searching, Hiroshi called them over to a dust-covered chest tucked beneath a shelf. Look at this seal. It's different from the others. Mizuki examined the intricate patterns carved into the chest's lock. It's Uzumaki work, but there's something else mixed in. She glanced at Percy. These symbols along the edge, they look like Greek letters. Percy leaned closer, recognizing the pattern. That's ancient Greek. It says, for the traveler between worlds. Mizuki's eyes widened. This must be it. She studied the lock mechanism. It's a dual seal, requires 2 types of energy to open. Chakra and divine power. Percy guessed. She nodded. Precisely what you possess. Under Mizuki's guidance, Percy channeled both energies into the lock. The seal glowed, symbols rotating and realigning until the chest clicked open. Inside lay a bound journal and several loose pages covered in diagrams. The journal combined 2 writing systems, ancient Greek and Percy assumed was ancient shinobi script. It's Daedalus's journal, Percy said with reverence, carefully lifting it. These are his notes from when he visited your world. Mizuki began translating sections while Percy deciphered the Greek portions. Hiroshi kept watch, occasionally checking the time. Listen to this, Mizuki said after several minutes. The convergence occurs when celestial bodies align with the dimensional fault lines. During this period, passage between worlds becomes possible, but at great risk. The natural balance seeks to equalize, drawing elements from one world into another. That explains the temple disturbance, Hiroshi noted. Percy found a relevant section in Greek. I have observed that water serves as an ideal conduit between worlds, its fluid nature allowing energy to transfer without disruption. My inventions utilizing hydraulic principles function in both realms, suggesting a universal constant. Water is a conduit, Mizuki mused. That's why your powers work so well here. And why the Uzumaki, with their water affinity, became masters of dimensional sealing. They continued piecing together Daedalus's observations. According to his notes, He had spent nearly a year in the shinobi world during the previous convergence, studying with the Uzumaki clan and developing sealing techniques that incorporated elements from both worlds. Here's something crucial, Mizuki said, pointing to a complex diagram. Daedalus created a stabilization seal that allowed controlled passage without weakening the dimensional barriers. It required 3 components: a physical anchor in each world, a chakra network spanning the gap, and divine blood freely given. The medallion must be one of the anchors, Percy reasoned. It resonated with both my demigod abilities and this world's chakra. Hiroshi peered at the diagram. But where's the other anchor? Percy thought of Camp Half-Blood, visible through the portal. It has to be at the corresponding location in my world. Somewhere at camp. Mizuki studied another page. Daedalus writes that he placed his anchor at the heart of the divine sanctuary, where the children of gods find safety. The big house, Percy realized. Or the campfire at its center. That's the heart of camp. But there's a warning here, Mizuki continued, her expression growing serious. If the convergence peaks without the stabilization seal in place, the barriers shatter completely. Worlds don't just connect. They collapse into each other. How long do we have? Percy asked. Based on these calculations and what we know, less than 60 hours until the lunar eclipse. Hiroshi checked his watch. We should head to the council meeting. They need to hear this. As they gathered the documents, Percy noticed another entry that chilled him. During my time here, I encountered entities that defied comprehension, chakra beings with intelligence and malevolence beyond mortal understanding. One such entity, sealed beneath the temple, reached into my dreams, offering knowledge in exchange for freedom. I recognized its nature from similar entities in my world, a primordial force masquerading as a benefactor. I strengthened its seals instead. The 10 tails, Percy murmured. Takeshi wasn't just trying to become its Jinchuriki, he was being manipulated by it. The council chamber was tense when they arrived. Tsunade sat at the head of a long table, flanked by village elders and clan heads. Kakashi stood nearby, along with other Jonin Percy recognized from his training sessions. You're late, Tsunade noted as they entered. But with good reason, Mizuki replied, placing Daedalus's journal on the table. We found records of the previous convergence, including methods to stabilize the dimensional passage. For the next 20 minutes, they presented their findings. Percy explained Daedalus's connection to his world and the principles behind the stabilization seal, while Mizuki detailed the technical requirements for implementation. So we need to create this seal at the temple before the lunar eclipse, Tsunade summarized. But there's still the matter of Takeshi and the tether binding him to Percy. A white-haired man with bandages covering one eye, Danzo, Percy had learned, spoke up. The solution is obvious. Execute the traitor. With his death, the tether will dissolve. It's not that simple, Mizuki countered. The soul tether links their chakra networks completely. Killing Takeshi while the connection is active could fatally disrupt Percy's network as well. A risk we might need to accept, Danzo said coldly. One life against the stability of our world. Percy felt the room's attention shift to him. There's another option, he said, recalling another section of Daedalus's notes. The stabilization seal requires divine blood freely given. If I incorporate the tether into the seal matrix, it could use Takeshi's connection to me as part of the stabilizing mechanism. Turning his weapon against him, Kakashi mused. Elegant, if it works. Tsunade studied the diagrams. Mizuki, is this feasible? The sealing specialist considered the question. Theoretically, yes. The tether is already spanning 2 types of energy systems. With proper modification, it could anchor the seal instead of serving Takeshi's purpose. There's another problem, Percy added. According to Daedalus, entities from both worlds will be drawn through weak points as the convergence peaks. We're already seeing this at the temple, but it could spread throughout the region. As if summoned by his words, an Anbu operative appeared in a swirl of leaves, kneeling before Tsunade. Hokage-sama, we have reports of anomalies throughout the Fire Country. Unknown creatures appearing near water sources. Teams have engaged 3 such entities near the northern border. Tsunade's expression hardened. Casualties. 4 injured, none fatal. The creatures display unusual resistance to ninjutsu. Percy stepped forward. They're from my world. Monsters that hunt demigods. Normal weapons won't work against them. You need celestial bronze or something divine. Like your sword, Kakashi noted. Percy nodded. Riptide can harm them. And if I'm right, chakra infused with natural energy might affect them too. Tsunade made a swift decision. Form specialized response teams, each with a Sage Mode capable shinobi if possible. Kakashi, you'll lead the temple operation with Percy, Mizuki, and a squad of your choosing. Hiroshi should come too, Percy added. His water techniques will be valuable for the seal. The Hokage nodded. Approved. You have until tomorrow's preparations to develop this stabilization seal. I want every detail verified. As the meeting concluded, Percy felt the tether pulse more strongly. He suppressed a wince as Takeshi's presence pushed against his consciousness. Kakashi noticed his discomfort. The connection is strengthening as the convergence approaches. We should speak with Takeshi directly. The containment facility beneath the Hokage Tower was a labyrinth of sealed chambers. Anbu guards led them to a reinforced cell at the lowest level, where seals covered every surface. Takeshi sat cross-legged in the center, despite heavy chakra suppression restraints. His white robes had been replaced with a simple gray uniform, but his dignified bearing remained unchanged. He smiled as they entered, eyes fixing immediately on Percy. The catalyst returns, he said, voice eerily calm. I can feel your progress, son of Poseidon. Your chakra network is developing beautifully. Save it, Percy replied. We know what you're trying to do, and we know about the entity manipulating you. Something flickered across Takeshi's face. Surprise, quickly masked. You understand nothing. Mizuki stepped forward, Daedalus's journal in hand. We found records of the previous convergence. Your ritual isn't original, it's a corruption of ancient Uzumaki techniques. Corruption. Takeshi laughed bitterly. I perfected what your ancestors only theorized. They feared the power beyond the veil. I embrace it. The Ten Tails is using you, Percy said bluntly. You're not going to become a god, you're going to become a puppet. Takeshi's smile faltered for an instant. You speak of things you don't understand, Godeling. The divine tree exists in all worlds under different names. In yours, they called it chaos, the primordial void from which all emerged. The name sent a chill through Percy. Chaos was the oldest entity in Greek mythology, the void before creation. Then you should know better, Percy said. Primordials don't share power, they consume it. Enough philosophy, Kakashi interrupted. We need information about the soul tether. How can it be safely dissolved? Takeshi studied him. It can't. Not without killing one or both of us. That was rather the point. There are always loopholes in sealing techniques, Mizuki countered. No jutsu is perfect. Perhaps, Takeshi conceded, but would you risk the son of Poseidon to find out? Especially when time is so short. Percy felt the tether pulse again, stronger this time. With it came a whisper of foreign thoughts, calculations, anticipation. And beneath it all, fear. You're afraid, Percy realized aloud. Not of us, of what you've been communing with. It's not what you expected, is it? Takeshi's composure cracked. You know nothing of my sacrifices. 20 years studying forbidden scrolls, offering my blood to ancient altars, losing everything to gain this knowledge. Why? Percy pressed, sensing vulnerability. What drove you to this? You wouldn't understand. You, with divine blood as your birthright. Takeshi's voice turned bitter. My family served the fire temple for generations, guardians of sacred relics. When the Third Shinobi War came, we begged the gods for protection. They remained silent as enemy ninja slaughtered everyone, even the children. His eyes hardened. I was 7, hidden beneath my mother's body, watching as self-proclaimed gods like your Hokage waged their wars while true divinity remained distant. I swore to ascend beyond such limitations, to claim the power that gods hoard for themselves. Percy recognized the pain beneath Takeshi's hatred, the same pain that had driven Luke Castellan and countless others to rage against the gods. I understand better than you think, Percy said quietly. The gods of my world aren't perfect either. I've fought some of them. But what you're reaching for isn't divinity, it's destruction. Takeshi studied him, something shifting in his expression. Perhaps we are more alike than different, son of Poseidon. Which makes our bond all the more fitting. As they left the containment facility, Percy felt unsettled by the encounter. He's not telling us everything. Mizuki nodded in agreement. The soul tether is strengthening in ways it shouldn't, even with the convergence approaching. There's another factor we're missing. We'll need to accelerate our preparations, Kakashi decided. Mizuki, you and Percy focus on developing the stabilization seal. Incorporate countermeasures for the tether. I'll assemble our team and gather intelligence on the temple's current state. What about me? Hiroshi asked. You'll assist with seal preparation and act as water chakra support. Your Mizushima techniques will be essential if we need to modify the seal on site. They parted ways, each focused on their tasks. Percy followed Mizuki to a specialized sealing laboratory in a secluded building near the Hokage Tower. The room was circular, with concentric seals etched into the floor and ceiling. Scrolls and ink supplies lined the walls, along with strange instruments Percy couldn't identify. Welcome to the Uzumaki Sealing Sanctuary, Mizuki said, activating a barrier seal at the entrance. One of the few remaining places where our clan's highest techniques can be safely developed. Over the next several hours, the Y worked to adapt Daedalus's stabilization seal for their current situation. Mizuki's expertise with sealing techniques complemented Percy's understanding of divine energy, creating a synergy that produced rapid progress. Your chakra control is improving, Mizuki noted as Percy helped infuse a practice seal with both energies. Most shinobi take years to achieve that level of precision. Having the water affinity helps, Percy replied. It feels natural, like an extension of my existing powers. As they worked, conversation flowed easily between them. Percy shared stories of Camp Half-Blood and his previous quests, while Mizuki described growing up as one of the few Uzumaki in Konoha, carrying the legacy of a nearly extinct clan. So you're basically the last of your kind too, Percy observed as they took a short break. Like me with Poseidon's children. There are others scattered throughout the nations, Mizuki said, rolling a kink from her shoulder. But few who still practice the traditional sealing arts. Most prefer the flashier jutsu, giant fireballs and lightning strikes. While you prefer ink and symbols that can reshape reality, Percy noted with admiration. Sounds familiar. My friend Annabeth would like you. She's all about knowledge and strategy over brute force. Something flashed in Mizuki's eyes, curiosity or perhaps something more. Tell me about her. Percy described Annabeth, her intelligence, determination, and their complicated relationship. As he spoke, he realized how much he missed her and everyone at camp. You'll see them again, Mizuki said, accurately reading his expression. If our seal works, you'll have the choice to return home. What about Takeshi and the tether? Mizuki gestured to their developing seal matrix. If our modifications work, the tether will be incorporated into the stabilization mechanism. It won't be broken, but redirected, sustaining the passage between worlds rather than serving as Takeshi's leash. Percy considered this. So I could go home. But the connection would remain. In theory, the passage would require maintenance from both sides, but it could be stable indefinitely. The implications were significant. A permanent, stable connection between worlds could be valuable, or dangerous. By evening, they had completed the theoretical framework for the modified stabilization seal. Mizuki prepared a demonstration model using a small water basin to represent the dimensional boundary. Watch, she instructed, activating the seal. The water in the basin began to swirl, forming a miniature vortex. Light shimmered across its surface, creating a mirror-like effect where vague images appeared and disappeared. This represents the stabilized passage, Mizuki explained. In the actual implementation, we'll need to position anchor seals on the temple altar and create a synchronized matrix that incorporates your divine energy and the tether. Percy studied the model with fascination. It's beautiful, in a way. Sealing is an art as much as a science, Mizuki agreed. My ancestors believed it was the highest form of chakra expression, creating order from chaos, binding the unbound. As she spoke, their eyes met over the glowing seal. Something unspoken passed between them, recognition of kindred spirits despite their different worlds. The moment was interrupted by Kakashi's arrival. Progress report. Mizuki efficiently explained their modified seal design while Percy demonstrated the energy infusion technique they'd developed. Kakashi absorbed the information quickly. Good work. We leave at dawn tomorrow. The temple's situation has deteriorated. More creatures from Percy's world are appearing around the site. What kind of creatures? Percy asked. Reports mention wolf-like humanoids, women with serpent features, and flying horses. Werewolves, Dracine, and Pegasi, Percy translated. The Pegasi are friendly, at least to me. The others, not so much. Our teams have established a perimeter. But conventional weapons are proving ineffective, as you predicted. Kakashi handed Percy a small pouch. Chakra conductive metal. Tsunade authorized Riptide to be replicated for the strike team. Percy opened the pouch to find metal chips similar to celestial bronze. These will work against Greek monsters. When infused with Sage Chakra, yes. Limited testing has proven effective. The reality of their situation sank in. Mythological creatures from his world were invading this one, and soon Shinobi would be fighting Greek monsters with chakra-enhanced weapons. Get some rest, Kakashi advised. Tomorrow we'll test all of us. Percy's sleep was haunted by disjointed visions, camp half-blood overlaid with Konoha, familiar faces distorted by swirling Sharingan patterns, the massive foe. Of the 10 tails emerging from a tear in reality. He awoke to find Takeshi's presence stronger in his mind, no longer just a cold spot but an active pressure against his consciousness. Get out of my head, Percy muttered, performing the chakra suppression technique with greater intensity. The pressure receded but didn't disappear completely. The convergence was strengthening the tether, just as Mizuki had predicted. Dawn found Percy at the village gates, where Kakashi had assembled their team, Mizuki, Hiroshi, and 4 Anbu operatives with specialized skills. Each carried sealed scrolls containing components for the stabilization seal. The situation has escalated overnight, Kakashi informed them as they prepared to depart. Dimensional anomalies have been reported throughout the region. Tsunade has dispatched teams to handle peripheral incidents, but our focus remains the temple. If we can establish the stabilization seal, the other breaches should seal naturally. And if we fail? Hiroshi asked. Then we implement contingency plan Omega, one of the Anbu said grimly. Total containment. Percy caught Mizuki's concerned glance. What's plan Omega? A last resort, she replied quietly. A massive barrier seal that would isolate the entire temple region, along with anyone inside it, in a pocket dimension. Sacrificing the few to save the many, Percy understood. Let's make sure it doesn't come to that. They moved through the forest with shinobi speed, covering ground rapidly. Percy found himself keeping pace more easily than before, his body adapting to this world's physical demands. As they approached the temple perimeter, signs of the dimensional crisis became evident. Patches of forest displayed impossible characteristics, trees with bark of celestial bronze, flowers that glowed with godly light. Pools of water that defied gravity. Reality is becoming fluid, Mizuki observed. The boundaries between worlds are thinning. A distant roar echoed through the trees, followed by the sound of combat. Kakashi signaled a halt, sending one of the Anbu ahead to scout. The operative returned moments later. Konoha forces engaged with Serpent Women 500 meters east. They're holding, but more creatures are emerging from a distortion near the river. Dracaena near water. Makes sense, Percy said. They serve Oceanus in my world. Can you communicate with them? Kakashi asked. Percy shook his head. They're monsters, not diplomats. They exist to hunt demigods. Then we avoid that sector. Our priority is the temple. Kakashi adjusted their route, leading them northwest through denser forest. They encountered their first direct challenge at a small clearing. The air shimmered like heat waves, and through the distortion, Percy glimpsed Long Island Sound, the waters near Camp Half-Blood. As they watched, a figure emerged, a beautiful woman with amber eyes and flowing hair that seemed to move like flames. Empisa, Percy warned, uncapping Riptide. Fire spirits that feed on men's blood. The Empisa smiled, revealing fangs. Son of Poseidon, she hissed. So far from home. My sisters will be pleased to find you here, unprotected by your camp's boundaries. Hiroshi stepped forward, hands forming signs. Water style. Liquid bullets. Spheres of water shot toward the Empisa, who dodged with supernatural speed. She laughed, flames erupting around her hands. Your water cannot quench my fire, little ninja. Percy charged, Riptide sweeping in a precise arc. The Empisa parried with flame-wreathed claws, hissing as the celestial bronze made contact. You bring interesting friends. Demigod, she taunted. Their chakra smells delicious. An Anbu operative appeared behind her, Tonto blade glowing with sage chakra. The Empisa sensed the attack, twisting inhumanly to avoid the strike. Her claws raked across the operative's mask, leaving smoldering trails. Enough, Mizuki said sharply. Her hands blurred through signs, ending in a complex pattern. Sealing art. Phantom chain prison. Golden chains erupted from the ground, wrapping around the Empisa with blinding speed. Each link bore tiny seals that glowed as they tightened. The monster screamed in fury, flames intensifying as she struggled against the bindings. This changes nothing. The barriers fall. Our worlds collide. The Ancient Ones awaken. Percy approached cautiously, riptide poised. Who sent you? What? Ancient Ones. The Empisa laughed through her pain. Ask your tethered friend, son of Poseidon. He hears their whispers too. Without warning, she convulsed violently. Her body began to dissolve into golden dust, the normal death of monsters in Percy's world, but mixed with flickering chakra energy. She self-destructed, Mizuki said, examining her broken chains. I've never seen anything like it. Percy felt the tether pulse strongly, Takeshi's presence pushing harder against his mental barriers. With it came fragments of foreign thoughts, anticipation, ritual preparations. And the name, Kagaya, repeated like a mantra. We need to move, Percy urged. Something's happening at the temple. They continued with greater caution, encountering several more dimensional anomalies but avoiding direct confrontation where possible. The forest grew increasingly warped as they approached the temple, trees twisted into impossible shapes, gravity fluctuating unpredictably. Pools of water that reflected entirely different landscapes. The convergence is accelerating, Mizuki noted, consulting a seal-inscribed compass. We're less than 3 hours from the first phase of the lunar eclipse. When they finally reached the temple clearing, Percy's breath caught. The ancient structure was barely recognizable, its stone columns now partially composed of materials from his world. Celestial bronze and Olympic marble intermixed with chakra-infused stone. The altar at its center glowed with pulsing energy, the medallion still embedded in its surface. But most concerning were the numerous distortions hovering throughout the temple, windows into Percy's world showing random locations, Camp Half-Blood, Mount Olympus, the underworld, even the depths of Tartarus. This is worse than we anticipated, Kakashi said grimly. The boundaries aren't just thinning, they're shattering. Percy studied the chaotic scene, focusing on the altar. The medallion is still acting as an anchor, but it's overwhelmed. We need to establish the stabilization seal immediately. Mizuki nodded, already unrolling their prepared scroll. We'll need to create a perimeter matrix first, then connect it to the central altar. Hiroshi, your water techniques will be crucial for the fluid channels between nodes. As they prepared to move into the temple, Percy felt the tether constrict painfully. Takeshi's presence surged against his mental barriers with newfound strength. He knows we're here, Percy gasped, struggling to maintain the suppression. He's fighting harder. Kakashi placed a hand on Percy's shoulder. Channeling stabilizing chakra. Focus. Use the suppression technique we practiced. With effort, Percy pushed back against the invasion. The pressure subsided slightly, but Takeshi's presence remained stronger than before. I can hold him for now, Percy assured them. Let's move before it gets worse. They entered the temple cautiously, the Anbu spreading out to secure the perimeter while Mizuki, Hiroshi, and Percy approached the altar. Kakashi remained vigilant, his Sharingan eye uncovered to monitor the dimensional distortions. Something's not right, Mizuki murmured as they examined the altar. These symbols weren't here before. New markings had appeared around the embedded medallion, intricate patterns that merged Greek letters with shinobi script in a configuration Percy found disturbingly familiar. It's a summoning circle, he realized. Like the ones used to call gods in my world, but modified with your sealing techniques. Mizuki's eyes widened in alarm. A summoning on this scale. During convergence, it could pull through something from either world, or both. That's Takeshi's plan, Percy concluded. Not just to become a Jinchuriki, but to summon and bind something greater. The 10 tails, Kakashi said from behind them. Or its equivalent from your world. Tartarus itself, Percy whispered. The primordial embodiment of the abyss, a consciousness so vast and alien it made the Olympians seem trivial in comparison. They worked quickly, establishing the stabilization seal matrix around the altar. Mizuki directed the placement of anchor points while Hiroshi created water channels to connect them, infusing the liquid with chakra. Percy contributed his unique energy, blending demigod power with chakra at key junctions in the matrix. He combination created a resonance that strengthened the seal, pushing back against the chaotic energies swirling through the temple. As they worked, the dimensional distortions fluctuated, some shrinking while others expanded. Through one larger window, Percy could clearly see the dining pavilion at Camp Half-Blood, where campers moved about, oblivious to the danger. They can't see this side, Percy noted. The passage isn't fully formed yet. It will be soon, Mizuki warned, checking the position of the sun. The eclipse begins in 47 minutes. With the perimeter established, they focused on the central component, modifying the altar to incorporate their stabilization seal without triggering Takeshi's summoning circle. It's like disarming a bomb while building a bridge, Mizuki muttered as she carefully added sealing scripts around the medallion. One wrong symbol and we could accelerate the convergence instead of controlling it. Percy knelt opposite her, channeling energy into the medallion itself. I can feel it responding. It's meant to be a key, not just an anchor. A key needs a lock, Hiroshi pointed out, maintaining the water channels that now glowed with combined energies. What's the corresponding component in your world? Percy closed his eyes, concentrating on the connection. Through the tether and the medallion, he sensed a resonance, something familiar yet distant. The hearth, he said suddenly. The camp hearth at Half-Blood. It's always burning, tended by Hestia herself. He opened his eyes. That's our anchor on the other side. With this realization, their work gained new focus. Mizuki modified the seal to target the specific resonance Percy had identified, creating a stable pathway between the temple altar and the distant hearth. As they completed the primary matrix, Kakashi called out a warning. Company approaching. Multiple signatures, not all of them human. The Anbu moved to defensive positions as figures emerged from the surrounding forest. Leading them was a familiar face, Takeshi, somehow freed from his containment cell. Impossible, Mizuki gasped. How did he escape? Takeshi smiled serenely, white robes restored and flowing in the unnatural breeze. Behind him came a procession of shinobi in matching attire, their eyes glazed and unfocused, moving with the jerky motions of puppets. Did you think mere seals could hold me as the worlds converge? Takeshi called. My consciousness has grown beyond such limitations. Percy felt the tether between them pulse violently. You used our connection. You projected your consciousness through it. Very good, son of Poseidon. While my physical body remains in that cell, my mind travels freely, inhabiting my followers through techniques your Hokage would consider forbidden. Kakashi stepped forward, hands ready to form signs. Those are missing nin from various villages. You've been collecting them. Vessels, Takeshi corrected. Temporary accommodations until my ascension. His gaze fixed on the altar. I see you've been busy. A stabilization seal, clever, but ultimately futile. Percy moved to protect the altar, riptide drawn. It's over, Takeshi. We're sealing the passage properly, no summoning. No 10 tails, no ascension. You misunderstand my intentions, as always. Takeshi's smile turned pitying. I don't seek to become a mere Jinchuriki. That was merely the first step. What comes next is true divinity. His followers spread out, forming a circle that mirrored their seal matrix. Each began performing identical hand signs with perfect synchronization. Stop them, Kakashi ordered. The Anbu and Hiroshi engaged the outer followers while Kakashi himself targeted Takeshi. Percy remained at the altar with Mizuki, protecting their incomplete seal. Keep working, Percy urged her. I'll hold them off. The battle erupted across the temple grounds. Kakashi's lightning blade clashed against Takeshi's barrier techniques, while the Anbu fought with deadly precision against the mind-controlled missing nin. Hiroshi demonstrated his clan's water mastery, transforming into liquid to evade attacks before reforming to strike with water blades that cut through enemy defenses. Percy found himself facing 3 opponents who had broken through the perimeter. Drawing on his new chakra abilities, he combined water techniques with his demigod powers, creating a hurricane-like vortex that swept the attackers away from the altar. Almost there, Mizuki called, her hands moving with incredible speed as she completed the stabilization matrix. I need divine blood for the final activation. Percy slashed his palm with Riptide's tip, letting his blood drip onto the designated seal point. The entire matrix flared with sea-green light, pulsing in opposition to the summoning circle's ominous red glow. The dimensional distortions wavered, some beginning to shrink as the stabilization seal asserted control over the convergence energies. Takeshi's expression contorted with fury. No, he broke away from his battle with Kakashi, hands forming a rapid sequence of unfamiliar signs. Blood contract. Soul consumption. Percy felt the tether between them transform, changing from a connection into a drain. His energy, both divine and chakra, began flowing toward Takeshi, who glowed with increasing power. He's using the tether to steal your energy, Mizuki shouted, desperately adding counter seals to the matrix. I can't block it completely. The temple shook as power surged between Percy and Takeshi. The dimensional distortions grew wild, expanding and contracting randomly. Through the largest portal, Camp Half-Blood became clearly visible, and for the first time, the campers seemed to notice something wrong, pointing at the shimmering air where the portal was forming. Percy fought against the drain, channeling his remaining energy into the stabilization seal. Mizuki, use the tether itself. Incorporate it like we planned. Understanding flashed in her eyes. She redirected her sealing technique, no longer trying to block the tether but instead integrating it into the stabilization matrix. If he wants a connection, she said grimly, we'll give him one he didn't expect. The seal flared with renewed purpose. Instead of fighting the energy drain, it utilized the connection, turning the tether into a controlled conduit between worlds. Takeshi's technique backfired. Instead of stealing Percy's power, he became an unwilling part of the stabilization mechanism. What have you done? He gasped, his body jerking as the energy flow reversed. Made you useful. Percy managed through gritted teeth, maintaining his position at the altar despite the pain. You wanted to be part of both worlds. Congratulations. The temple altar blazed with light as the stabilization seal fully activated. The chaotic distortions began to coalesce, drawing together toward the central portal where Camp Half-Blood was visible. Other portals shrank and disappeared, air energies redirected into the controlled passage. Takeshi's followers collapsed as his divided consciousness was pulled back into the stabilization matrix. He alone remained standing, now bound to the convergence in the same way Percy was, an anchor point between worlds. It's working, Mizuki exclaimed, watching as the dimensional energies aligned with their seal patterns. The random portals are closing, and the main passage is stabilizing. The eclipse had begun, the moon's shadow taking its first bite from the sun above. The temple grounds dimmed as celestial alignment enhanced the convergence energies. Takeshi, though weakened, began laughing, a sound that chilled Percy's blood. You've succeeded beyond your understanding, he said. The stable passage was always the goal. What are you talking about? Percy demanded. We've prevented your summoning ritual. Have you? Takeshi raised his hands, where blood seals glowed on his palms. The summoning circle was a distraction. The true ritual requires a stable connection between worlds, exactly what you've provided. Before anyone could react, Takeshi slammed his bloodied palms onto the nearest seal node. Forbidden art. Twin worlds awakening. The stabilization seal flickered, its patterns distorting as Takeshi's technique infiltrated the matrix. The central portal expanded dramatically, its edges now tinged with crimson energy. Through the portal, Percy watched in horror as the campfire at Half-Blood flared unnaturally high, its flames turning blood red. Campers backed away in alarm as the hearth's fire took shape. Foe. RMING, a humanoid figure that grew more defined by the second. Simultaneously, the temple altar cracked, dark energy seeping through the fissures. The medallion pulsed erratically, now serving as a conduit for whatever was emerging from both sides. What have you summoned? Mizuki demanded, frantically trying to modify the seals to counter this new development. Not what. Who, Takeshi corrected. He primordial ones who existed before gods and tailed beasts. In your world, Percy Jackson, you know her as Nyx, goddess of night. In ours, she is Kagaya, the rabbit goddess. Different names for the same cosmic power. Percy felt a chill of recognition. The ancient beings Takeshi described transcended individual mythologies, primordial forces that existed in all realities under different guises. Why? Oh, you can't control entities of that magnitude, Kakashi warned, rejoining them at the altar. Even the Sage of Six Paths barely managed to seal Kagaya away. I don't seek to control them, Takeshi replied. I seek to offer myself as a vessel. a bridge between their fragmented existences. The eclipse progressed overhead, now covering half the sun. As darkness increased, the manifestations on both sides of the portal grew stronger. At Camp Half-Blood, the fiery figure from the hearth had taken the form of a woman with stars for eyes and darkness flowing around her like a cloak, unmistakably Nyx. From the temple altar, a white-haired woman with horns and alien eyes was emerging, her presence distorting reality itself. Kagaya, Hiroshi whispered in horror, rejoining them after defeating the last of Takeshi's followers. We need to sever the connection, Percy decided. Close the portal completely. Mizuki shook her head. If we disrupt the stabilization seal now, the uncontrolled convergence energy would tear apart both dimensions. We need to modify it, maintain stability while preventing the full manifestation. How? Percy asked, feeling the tether straining as Takeshi channeled more power through it. Divine blood and sacrifice, she answered grimly. The same components that created this situation. Understanding dawned in Percy's eyes. The tether itself. If we redirect its purpose again. Mizuki nodded. Instead of connecting you to Takeshi, we make it bind these entities back to their respective realms. That would require someone to anchor each side, Kakashi noted. Quote, someone physically present in each world. Percy looked through the portal at Camp Half-Blood, where his friends were frantically trying to contain the manifestation of Nyx. He recognized Annabeth organizing defenses, and Chiron directing campers to safety. The choice clarified in his mind. I need to go back, he said. I have to anchor that side while you secure this one. The tether won't allow that separation, Mizuki warned. Unless, she turned to Takeshi, who was now hovering at the edge of the altar, energy flowing through him into both manifesting entities. Unless he remains here as the anchor. Percy finished her thought, permanently bound to this side of the passage. Mizuki began rapidly modifying the seals, creating a new configuration. It could work. The soul tether WOU. LD be repurposed again, binding Takeshi here while allowing you to return home. Both of you would become permanent anchors, maintaining the seal between worlds. Trapping him here and me there, Percy summarized. With a thread of connection between us that stabilizes both realities. A fitting symmetry, Kakashi observed. But Takeshi would need to be subdued first. As if hearing his name, Takeshi turned toward them. His body now glowed with borrowed power, eyes showing the alien influence of the entities he was helping to manifest. You cannot stop what is already in motion, he said, his voice overlaid with inhuman harmonics. The primordials awaken. Worlds reunite. Percy faced him, riptide gleaming with combined celestial bronze and chakra energy. I've stopped gods before. Primordials are just gods with bigger egos. Channeling his remaining strength, Percy charged. Takeshi met him with a blast of combined chakra and divine energy, their powers clashing in a shockwave that shook the temple foundations. Percy pushed through the energy storm, his demigod resilience enhanced by the chakra he'd developed. Riptide cut through Takeshi's defenses, disrupting the flow of power to the manifestations. Mizuki, now, Percy shouted as he forced Takeshi back toward the altar. Her hands blurred through seals, the modified matrix activating around them. Golden chains similar to those she'd used against the Empus erupted from the seal points, wrapping around Takeshi and dragging him toward the center. No, Takeshi struggled against the bindings. I am so close. The manifestatio NS of Kagaya and Nyx wavered as their connection through Takeshi weakened. Percy pressed his advantage, driving Riptide through Takeshi's shoulder and into the altar stone, pinning him in place. It's over, Percy said, his face inches from Takeshi's. You wanted to transcend worlds. You'll get your wish, as a permanent anchor. Takeshi's eyes cleared momentarily, the alien influence receding. You don't understand what you're preventing. The worlds were meant to be one. The division is unnatural. Maybe so, Percy acknowledged. But reuniting them this way, through these entities, would destroy both. With Takeshi secured, Mizuki completed the modified seal. Percy, you need to go through now. The eclipse reaches totality in 2 minutes, the portal will stabilize permanently then. Percy looked at her, suddenly reluctant. In the days he'd spent in this world, he'd found connections he hadn't expected, with Hiroshi, with Kakashi, and especially with Mizuki. Will I be able to communicate across the passage? He asked. Mizuki nodded. The tether will maintain a thread of connection. Limited, but real. Her eyes met his. We'll see each other again. Percy turned to Hiroshi, who looked both proud and sad. Take care of yourself, water boy. You're going to make an amazing shinobi. And you're already an amazing hero, Hiroshi replied with a grin. Kakashi placed a hand on Percy's shoulder. Tell your world about ours. Prepare them. This may be a controlled connection now, but boundaries have a way of thinning again. I will, Percy promised. He turned back to Mizuki one last time. Thank you for everything. Before he could second-guess himself, Percy stepped through the portal. The sensation was different from his arrival, less chaotic, more like passing through a waterfall. He felt the tether stretch but not break as he crossed the boundary between worlds. His feet touched the familiar ground of Camp Half-Blood. Around him, campers stared in shock as he materialized beside the hearth, where the manifestation of Nyx was already receding. Percy. Annabeth's voice cut through his disorientation. She ran toward him, stopping short when she saw his changed appearance, the shinobi clothing. The new confidence in his stance. Hey, wise girl, he greeted her with a smile that carried both joy and sadness. You wouldn't believe where I've been. Behind him, the portal began to shrink as the eclipse reached totality. Through the narrowing passage, Percy caught a final glimpse of the temple, Mizuki completing the seal, Kakashi standing guard, Hiroshi waving farewell, and Takeshi bound to the altar. His fate now tied to the stability of worlds. As the portal contracted to a pinpoint of light before disappearing completely, Percy felt the tether settle into a new configuration, a thin thread of connection rather than a constricting bond. Through it, he sensed the successful completion of the seal on the other side. Chiron approached, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. Percy, what happened? Where did you go? Percy touched the spot where the tether connected him to a world of shinobi and chakra, of different gods and familiar struggles. I found another world, he said simply. And now I'm its anchor. Annabeth took his hand, noticing the calluses from kunai training and the faint chakra residue still visible to those who knew what to look for. You've changed. In more ways than you know, Percy agreed. But I'm still me. Just expanded. The campfire returned to its normal colors, though Percy could now sense the potential within it. The hearth's connection to the temple altar across dimensions. He would need to maintain it, to learn how to be an anchor between worlds while living his life at Camp Half-Blood. As night fell and campers gathered for an emergency council, Percy explained his journey, the shinobi world, chakra techniques, and the averted crisis. He described Konoha and its people, the different but parallel system of power, and the surprising similarities between their mythologies. So there's a stable connection now? Annabeth asked, her mind already racing with possibilities. Could others cross over? Not easily, Percy explained. The passage is controlled, designed for communication more than travel. But in emergencies, he left the implication hanging. Later that night, as Percy stood alone by the shore of Long Island Sound, he felt a faint pulse through the tether. Concentrating, he channeled a small amount of chakra, a technique Mizuki had taught him for long-distance communication through seals. An image formed on the water's surface, Mizuki's face, smiling despite obvious exhaustion. It worked, her voice came faintly across the dimensional gap. The seal is stable, Takeshi is contained, and the manifestations, Percy asked, receded to their respective realms. The Hokage has established a permanent guard at the temple. Her expression turned mischievous. Hiroshi's been promoted to Chunin for his role in the mission. Percy smiled. He deserves it. They spoke briefly about the aftermath. The creatures from Percy's world that had been stranded in the shinobi realm were being studied and contained, while the knowledge gained from the convergence was being carefully documented by both sides. The Council is considering establishing a formal protocol for cross-dimensional communication, Mizuki explained. Your Chiron and our Tsunade should probably discuss terms. Diplomatic relations with another dimension, Percy laughed. That's a first, even for us. As their connection began to fade, Mizuki's expression softened. Will you visit? When the convergence energies allow safer passage? Percy nodded. Count on it. I still have a lot to learn about chakra, and you ISED to teach me more sealing techniques. It's a date, she replied with a smile before her image dissolved back into ordinary seawater. Percy remained by the shore, contemplating the strange turn his life had taken. He was now more than a demigod. He was a bridge between worlds, with responsibilities to both. He had new powers to master, new connections to maintain, and a new understanding of the multiverse's complexities. As he practiced a simple water manipulation technique Hiroshi had taught him, Percy smiled at the thought of the future, of two worlds connected by a stable thread, of furry NDS on both sides of the dimensional divide, and of the endless possibilities that lay ahead. The son of Poseidon had become something unprecedented, a shinobi demigod, an anchor between realities, and perhaps someday, a true bridge between gods and tailed beasts. Chapter 2 End.